Okay, Charlie Cat here on YouTube. He's a regular viewer of the show, leaves a lot of comments and feedback for me. He's a big time Neo Geo enthusiast, so his question is no surprise. He wants to know what some of my, fond memories are of Neo Geo and why I'm still into it today. I'm very into Neo Geo. I don't have an AES or an AES collection, mind you, because I'm unfortunately not made of money. But I do love my Neo Geo CD. I have a pretty extensive collection for that, and I love my Neo Geo Pocket as well. It's actually one of my favorite handhelds ever. One of the few handhelds that does fighting games really well, or at least from this generation. So yeah, I love my Neo Geo games. I've been a fan of SNK for a long time. Initially, I guess my first exposure to Neo Geo was some of those weird magazine advertisements back in the day when I used to read like Game Fan and Game Pro, stuff like that. So I saw these adverts, but I had never played any of these games. There wasn't any kind of like real like brand or name recognition for me at that time, which admittedly I was like maybe 7 or 8 years old. But that didn't really spark my interest. What did was my first real exposure to any SNK games was, at least as far as my memory goes, being at a shopping center with my mom when I was like 8, and there was a little arcade section in there where they had some fighting and shooting games, what have you. They had a Samurai Showdown. I don't even remember if it was a dedicated Samurai Showdown cabinet or if it was just a Neo Geo MVS cabinet. But I remember going in there and I don't even think they were older kids. I think they were some grown-ups, some two guys were in there playing Samurai Showdown. And that looked just so amazing to me, because at the time I was already loving Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. I had never seen a game with weapons before. And it was just a really beautiful game. The character animations, the backgrounds, the effects on the special attacks, it was all really cool. So that was my first exposure to some SNK fighting games. Even though I didn't really realize at the time that, oh, this is SNK, I just saw this really cool game called Samurai Showdown. And, that was as far as I thought it through. Later, I had played some SNK games on the Super Nintendo, actually. Fatal Fury Special and Art of Fighting. And I guess it was at about that time I started to put it together. I had my favorite, developers and publishers at the time were like Capcom and Konami. I recognized their games right away. After playing Samurai Showdown, Fatal Fury Special, and Art of Fighting, that's when I kind of started to realize they're all part of, this one company making all these games, and that was SNK. And then eventually, I had borrowed a copy of King of Fighters 95 for the PlayStation from a friend of mine, and then that kind of cemented it for me. I saw some characters in it that I recognized from Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting, which I had played up to that point. Then a whole bunch of characters I didn't recognize, but I didn't care, because by that time I was a hardcore fighting game fan, and this was my first time playing King of Fighters, was 95, and I thought it was great. And from then on, I kind of became a dedicated SNK fan. I became more interested in their video games and in the characters. I had gotten some, started developing a real love for characters like Terry Bogard, and Ryuji Yamazaki is one of my favorite Fatal Fury and King of Fighters characters, Kim Kep1, a bunch of others. So yeah, started with just seeing Samurai Showdown in an arcade, and then playing some of the Super Nintendo ports and really enjoying those, and then finally borrowing a copy of King of Fighters 95 from a friend of mine, and then after that playing as many King of Fighters as I could, especially getting it was 98 Reboot or something to that effect on the Dreamcast, Garo, Mark of the Wolves, playing Metal Slug for the first time. So I really started to get into SNK and Neo Geo after that, and I had bought all of the SNK collections when they came out. So I bought the Fatal Fury collections and the Art of Fighting collection, and there were more. I don't recall if there was a Samurai Showdown collection. There were these Neo Geo or SNK Classics collections and stuff like that. I got all of those, really enjoyed those. And then actually when I came to Japan about 6 years ago, this was the Neo Geo CD that I bought 6 years ago. It was the first dedicated Neo Geo system I'd ever owned, and I immediately started, picking up everything I could. Fatal Fury, King of Fighters, Metal Slug, all the fun sports titles, all the action titles, Magician Lord, and Nam 1975, and all the really great shoot-em-ups for it, like Last Resort and Ghost Pilots. And yeah, I really love my Neo Geo CD. I love my Neo Geo Pocket, which the first time I played a Neo Geo Pocket, I want to say I was like 16. I had actually gotten my first job around the holidays. I was working at Sam Goody, and with the money I made, I bought a few things off eBay. I bought my first 3DO off eBay, which was kind of a mistake. I bought my first Genesis that I actually owned with a 32X and a Sega CD, which I actually enjoyed quite a bit. And I bought my first Neo Geo Pocket at the time with, I want to say, was it like Fatal Fury R1 or R2, and there was a King of Fighters game as well. But I had bought some fighting games for it, and that's when I realized that fighting games could be done really well on the Neo Geo, and so could Sonic and Metal Slug. Anything that was put on the Neo Geo Pocket was like just the perfect example of a really good handheld game from, like, the 90s. Anyway, yeah, that's just kind of like a brief history of kind of like my love for SNK and Neo Geo in general. I still do love them. King of Fighters I still enjoy very much. 12, 13, 14. It's all good. I'd love to see SNK start making more games, based on their old properties. I'd love to see some new Metal Slug, some new Fatal Fury. I think that would be really great. Anyway, Charlie Cat, thank you for your question, and thank you for being a supporter of the show as well. And everybody, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.